thanks for joining. So I just want to do a quick tutorial on fabric tumblers. So let's get started. So I usually purchase my fabric in 1/3 of a yard, and that gives me, excuse my hiccups, enough for any size cup. So what I'm going to do is just pull a little bit off. You can pre-cut your sections or you can measure as you go. I do both, but I just wanted to show you this method. So I have my cup. I just took my sticker off of it, and I'm going to go ahead and just do a light coat of epoxy, or I'm sorry, Mod Podge. So this brush I got at Walmart. It was awesome. They are in the crafting section. It comes in a big pack of paintbrushes, but it's amazing because it's just a synthetic brush. And the Mod Podge actually doesn't like glue it, if that makes any sense. I can put it in a baggie and reuse this a bunch of times, or you can put it in the sink and wash it right off. So I just have a light layer, a very thin layer, and I don't go all the way around. So very thin layer. I have my fabric laid out, and I'm going to put the cup right in the center of it. And I'm going to pull fabric this way. And then what I do is I just roll the cup until I have enough space to cover. And then I go ahead and cut. Now, like I said, you can pre-cut your fabric. I know the exact measurements of it, but I like doing this also, because that way I just fold this right back up. I don't have to go to my cut table. Okay, so I put my hand right on the inside of this cup, and you're just going to start smoothing it down. So you want to pull a little bit and then smooth. And I just smooth it all the way down. Now I know there's a section that I didn't do, and that's going to be where I join them. Okay, so I just smooth it down. Alright, now we're at this section. The section that I cut, I have fray scissors. It just helps eliminate this stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and do another little layer of the glue. You want to use the glue, but you don't want big clumps, so you don't want too thick of the glue, because especially with white fabric, it will make it look wet, and you don't want that. So I'm going to pull this a little bit, and then I just smooth it out real nice. Now I like to have a nice clean straight line. So what I do is I go ahead and take my scissors and I run them against the cup, and that gives me a nice straight line. There are several different ways you guys can do this. This is the way that I do it. Which you don't need. And then you can also go ahead and cut this to get it out of your way. Okay, you're going to use this, don't throw that away. Alright, so then I go ahead and take a little bit of glue and I run it right underneath. And then I'm going to put the glue right on top and push this down. If you can see that, the light's really bright. So I run the glue right over top of that fabric. And again, I want to make sure the glue is nice and even and there's no clumps. Okay, you want to make sure that there's glue on the whole cup. Okay, then I take this piece and I smooth it over. And when I cut this piece, I try to cut it as close to this line as possible. Okay, so I roll it back, feel where that line's at. I'm going to roll this back, maintaining this straight line. Let me see if I can turn this down a little. It's really bright. Alright, and it doesn't help that my fabric's white. Okay, so I roll it back a little bit. Alright, so I want to maintain a nice straight line on this so that when I cut my fabric, it's a straight line. There are different methods to this also. I keep my scissors, I hold my fabric, keep it right here, and I go ahead and cut. I run my scissors along my cup, and that way I get my straight line. It doesn't always happen. There are other methods to this, like I said. Okay. If it's not exactly, I always have a little extra space. There are other ways you guys can do this. You can glue it down, wait till it's a little bit harder, and then cut your fabric. That works also. I just like to make stuff more complicated on me. Again, I'm going to run this right down this edge. Oh yeah? And then I go ahead and move this down. Now, without using the fray scissors, you want to make sure you run your glue in the direction of the fabric so any of these little extra pieces run smoothly. You don't want to glue in the opposite direction that the fabric goes. So what I mean by that is your fabric is going to fray. When you're gluing, you want to make sure you glue this way. Okay? So now what I do is I actually cut my rim. I put my scissors right up against this and I cut it all the way around. I don't worry about this rim because I cut my rims off. This allows me to set my cup down. So what I mean by cut my rims off is all of my cups are like this. The reason I do that is I used to do cups like this. However, the epoxy does not get a very good seal and it will come up eventually. Your cups can get ruined, customers get mad, all that fun stuff. So it is much, much better if you do this, and that way that epoxy completely seals against the cup and you have no issues. Okay. So now for the bottom part, we're going to cut this also. I like to cut it about a 1/4 inch. And just cut all the way around. Okay, so about that much. And then you're going to cut little straight down snippets. Again, 1/2 inch, 1/4 inch. This just simply allows your fabric to fold. Okay, what you need is a circle. The best method to get a perfect circle is to take a cup, put it on your fabric, and draw a line. However, I do have a pen. So what you're going to do is take this, and you can just draw a little line. It's probably the fastest way to cut a circle. I cut a lot. I usually freehand my circles, but okay. So the excess you can toss. So now you have a circle, and we're going to cut on the inside of the drawn line. You want to make sure that your fabric does not roll over the edge of the bottom of the cup. You want it to sit just inside of the bottom of the cup. So I can show you what that looks like. It is also important to have really sharp fabric scissors that will reduce your fraying because your fabric will fray. So key points when you're putting the Mod Podge on your cup, make sure you don't bulk it up and you don't put too much because you can wet the fabric and you cannot unwet the fabric, unfortunately. Okay, so now all we're going to do, make sure there's no fluffy things on here. You're going to get a little bit of glue on your brush. You're going to glue the bottom, and then I take my brush and I go all the way around in a circle and I push all these pieces down. Okay, now with your fingers, you start on the edge and you're going to roll your finger over the edge, pushing down nice and hard. This will ensure the edge is really nicely done and it's nice and flat. When you do this, you'll get glue that pops out. Okay, so I go all the way around my cup and I push this down as flat as I can. I really want to make sure it's nice and smooth around the edges. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and put a little more glue on here. Real quick. And then you put your fabric circle on that. I push in the middle first and then I work my way out. And I just kind of push with my hand. And then I roll on the rim. Okay. Then I get a little more glue and I go right over and I go all the way around this rim. Again, go with the grain or the strands of your fabric to make sure that the fraying doesn't look crazy. And you just want to kind of smooth out that fray, if there is fray. Okay. And now you're gonna, I like to start at the seam, that way I always know where I go. So here's my seam. I'm gonna get glue and start from bottom to top, and then top to bottom. I just brush it on. I make sure it's a good layer. It's thicker, but it's not, you can't even see it. You don't want any clumps. You don't want too thick of it, because if you put too thick of the Mod Podge or there's any clumps, it will dry kind of a milky color. So especially around your rim right here, we really want to make sure that the glue is smooth so you don't get that. The most important part is just covering the cup all the way. So that's why I kind of go top to bottom, bottom to top, and make sure that it's nice and even and fully covered. You want to make sure all that fabric, you can see it more in person than anything. Make sure the fabric is wet looking, not wet, but glued. And there's no fabric showing without glue on it. So you're going to do this 3 to 4 times. You want to make sure that your Mod Podge is dry in between each coat. So I will set this one aside and I'll let this dry, and then I will add another coat. Another way to get around adding 500 coats of Mod Podge is using the Krylon spray. I do 2 coats of Mod Podge, and then I use this. So I usually, I'll do 2 coats of the Mod Podge, and then I will cut my rim. So let me show you how to cut your rims. So this one is glued, 2 coats. I'm going to take, I have washi tape, I go around the rim with this, and I use this as a guide to cut a straight line. The Lord has blessed me with many things. Cutting straight lines is not one of them. I cannot cut straight lines to save my life. Alright, so I tape that around the rim. That's just a guide. Then I take a box cutter. There's different ways to do this. This is the easiest way that I have found to do it. Again, this is after 2 coats of the Mod Podge completely dried. Do not do this with wet. You will tear your fabric. This is sat here for about a couple days, but you don't have to wait that long. About an hour, your glue should be dried. I like to start on the seam. You can see the seam right there. This way I know when I get all the way around. So with this, I use the tip of my blade and I stick it right into that fabric. And I roll my cup instead of moving my blade. So I just go ahead and roll. I just follow this line and just keep on going until you get all the way to that starting point. Okay, and then what I do is I take my blade and I actually stick it right on in between. I have a really dull blade right now. And then it pulls right off. Just like that. Now there's gonna be dried glue on there, so I just take my knife and I use it flat and I go like this. And I pretty much just scrape it off. It doesn't scrape up or anything. I don't know if you have to do this. I've never epoxied a cup without doing this. But the glue is clear, so I assume you may not. But I like a really clean look, so that's why I go ahead and I do this. Like I said, I've tried not cutting the rims. It's so much better if you do. And I think it looks cleaner with that nice rim, that stainless steel look. Alright, so we're just going to go all the way around, just like this. It's tedious, I know, but the end result is so worth it, you guys. I also make sure I cut the edge. I'll show you what I mean. So another thing that I do is I go around this part, just like that. Sometimes when I'm gluing, I get a little glue happy. You can also use your fingernails, if you have fingernails. That'll scrape this off. The most important part is do not lift your fabric off of here. You want to try and maintain that seal as much as possible. But we're going to extra ensure. So when you go to mom epoxy your cups, if this seal gets broken whatsoever, the epoxy will get under your fabric and it'll look wet. There's nothing you can do about it. Unfortunately, it will permanently just look like a wet spot. So it is super, super crucial, if anything, you know, to make sure that this is done. There's different ways you can do that. I like to use my triple thick and I go ahead and spray it. You can use your hand or a noodle. So I'm just going to spray the fabric all the way down, and that way it'll give me a good seal. Okay. And this is especially important with light fabrics like the white cups. Okay, so that gives it a shiny little, you can kind of see how shiny that is. So I'm going to let that completely dry, and then I epoxy the cups. So that gives you the perfect bottoms and that perfect rim. Woo! So here's a finished sealed cup. Alright, so if you guys have any questions, go ahead and message me or comment below and I'll get back to you. And hopefully you guys have fun. So happy cup making. Bye.